All right, so you want to learn how to set a buffalo cultivator. Well, here's how you do it. So this is a first generation or close to it. It's an early generation buffalo, so it doesn't have all the fancy metering gears up top on your hillers, but we'll get to that. It's got some of the older style of adjustment. It's just a little bit more time consuming, but you can set them just as close. You're going to just have to guess and check a little when you get into the field. This here is a 6-row example. I think you can get them all the way out to a 12. We use a 6-row on a 12-row planter. It works pretty good for us. So we'll work our way back to front. You can start with your shields. I prefer to start with my shanks and then set my shields in the field. But your shields will skate, we're talking maybe an inch over the ground. They shouldn't rub in the ground. These should not be running in the dirt. These should only be catching the dirt that's thrown off your hillers and then thrown off of this. So the inside of these shields will get pretty worn, kind of like this one, but you shouldn't see anything like this. So before we own this machine, see how these were running a little low. So you'll get a little bit of that, but you shouldn't be running these into the ground. They should be just barely skimming over the top. And again, you'll set these in the field once you actually put her in the dirt. Onto your shank. For depth, you'll loosen these 4 3/4-inch bolts. I like to put a little spray lube in here just to help it move a little easier. And then I put a floor jack underneath the base of this bar, either on one of those bolts or underneath this bar here, in order to set my depth. It just helps to hold it. And I set it to 2 3/4 inches here out the top. And I set that all the way across as just a good starting point. So that'll give you 14 inches in between the bottom of this deal here and the top of this plate here. And I measure from the top of that plate centered up with this adjustment bolt. So if you take your tape measure, set it on top of that plate right there and run it all the way up under here, that should be 14 inches. Next is adjusting the angle of your shank. So the manual will tell you a 1/4 inch from this corner to the front of this bar. That's just a good starting point to get you close. What you're really looking for is 1 inch difference from this tip to halfway back right here on the edge of this blade on this shank. So that's 1 inch difference from here to here. So mine run 1 15/16 to about 2 15/16 right back here. And I just measured off the ground with the machine leveled up. And the reason for that is you want these to kind of pull the butt end of this cultivator down while your gauge wheels and your pillars are kind of pushing it up, and it'll help level this machine out. Next is on your main disc. Just make sure it's as close to centered up on that tip as you can get it. Mine's just a little bit off to the one side, but that's well within acceptable. All this has got to do is just chop the stalks up so they don't get wrapped around your bar and plug up your machine. Next is your hillers up front. And this is where the real magic of the buffalo comes in. So these hillers are concave discs. I like to set them to 2 inch right here. So 2 inches from the top of this plate to mid. So pick your middle point because it might angle a little bit. Pick your middle point on this bar to the top of that plate. It should be 2 inch. Again, 4 3/4 inch bolts. Now, the magic happens is in your setting of your angle. So when you set your angle on these machines, on these older ones, all you've got to base yourself on is this roll pin. And sometimes these bars can get twisted, or maybe they're an aftermarket, whatever. And the angle of this roll pin won't necessarily match up to the angle of that disc across the entire machine. So use your eyes and just get them as close as you can. I like to run mine. I don't know what that angle is. It's pretty stinking steep, but just so the front tip of that disc there is rubbing the leaves of the short plants. We're talking, you know, shin-ish high, mid-shin plants, just so it's rubbing the leaves. And you can see these are even a little bit out of kilter. I got to adjust that one there on the right. And again, you might have to go back and set these in the field, but do what you can here at the shop to get them close. Now, when your corn gets thigh high, waist high, and you want to go back in and cultivate it again, you can flip these hillers around. So you'll take these two bolts loose here that hold the thing on. You'll take this loose. This bracket will slide off. This bracket will come off separate, and this will drop your whole wheel and everything right out the bottom, and you can just set all those pieces to the side. You'll then take a wrench and a socket and take that 3/4 inch bolt out, and that casting right here will come off. You then flip-flop this to the other side and reassemble just how it came apart, except everything's backwards. If you don't do that, the angle of this bar, if you rotate it 180 degrees, will be off. And you will be too close to your plants in here, and you can really tear some roots up or whatever. And another important thing to note is you won't have your angle adjustment anymore, because this roll pin will be riding this casting and hitting this bolt. So you have to flip all of this stuff around to the other side if you're going to do it that way. Alternatively, if you want to muscle these around, you can take these two bolts loose up here on these castings. Let me walk around, get a better angle on them. You can take these two bolts loose up here on these castings where it's held to the toolbar, and you can take this whole assembly and move it over here to your opposite side and just flip-flop these for a row. So in this white section, this one, you take them two bolts loose, it'd move over here, and vice versa, and that would accomplish the same thing as switching all the stuff down there. In fact, that might be the smarter way to do it, because you have to take these at least somewhat loose anyway, because once you flip-flop that around, that disc is now going to be too close. So you have to move this assembly inwards. I'd say, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches. You'd have to give her a go. So on this outside, I never throw it towards. We just do early cultivation. We leave it alone as much as we can. But I run 1.5 inches from the outside of this white bar to the head of that bolt, and I just draw a tape measure and I hook it on the bar here, and I do 1.5 inches from the end of this bolt to right there. You can see where the other ones were in, so that's, I don't know, what is that, 2.5, 3, maybe 4 inches in. You can draw a tape on that. But the key is the same concept as right here, except these blades will be flipped around like this now. They'll be tossing the dirt towards the base of the plant. And you want that trailing edge, again, to just barely miss the stalks of that plant. And if you're running in bigger corn, you're going to have to widen it out a little bit, which is why we go out there, is to not chew up those lower leaves. So, the reason you do that is to kill all the weeds down below and help protect the brace roots of that plant. Now once you've done all that, and you get this machine set, and you want to run her through the field, you're going to want to run about 6.5 miles per hour at a minimum. The reason for that is if you don't run 6.5 miles per hour, you'll have one of two things. You'll either have clods that hold the weeds and they just drop right back in the furrow and then weeds keep growing just as they were. Or alternatively, rather than tossing those weeds up on top of the dirt layer and having them dried out and die in the sun, you're actually turning those weeds under, and then they germinate again and just come right back up. So you want to run high speed, and almost like a high speed disc, right down the row as quick as you can, and really churn up that dirt so it's all getting nice and fine powdery and everything else. That way the cultivator will do everything that it's supposed to do, and you'll be a happy camper when nothing comes back up right after you get done. You can do 2 passes. You can do an up and back pass if you want to be extra thorough. We don't. We usually just do 1 pass, and we find that it works dandy for us. Now, if you find that once you get into your dirt and this machine is throwing clods, it's not breaking it up and powderizing it. If it's throwing big chunky clods all the time, that probably means that this shank is set too steep. So it's too nose down and it's digging too hard and it's kind of peeling those chunks and clods out. In that case, you'd want to rotate this back to bring that tip up, and you'd want to do that evenly across all your rows. If you go into the field and you walk behind the machine and you notice these tails are coming out of the ground, that means that your depth is either too shallow and or the machine is not level. Likely what's going on is your shanks are set right, but that third link on your tractor is turned too far in. It's too short, and so the planter angles or the cultivator angles towards your tractor, lifting these a little out of the ground. These should be buried at all times underneath the dirt thrown by those front concave discs. You should not see these come out of the ground at any time. All right. Well, that pretty well concludes everything that I have to say about them. They're not too difficult. They're just a little bit time consuming to get set up, and once you get them set, they're pretty slick whispers. So hope this video helps you out, and if it did, just be kind and let me know if you got any questions.